is Amanda Bull-Chafin. I work at the Lane Community Technology Center in Hamilton, Ohio, and today I'm going to walk you through the process of designing your very own layered, laser-cut wooden ornament. Before we start on our project, we're actually going to need to do a little bit of prep work. Because we're going to be using a font for this, and we're going to be cutting a font, what we want to do is we want to choose our fonts beforehand. And I found this great website called morethan-thursdays.com, and they have a little blog post here where they already tested 45 tried and tested script fonts for craft cutters. So I kind of sorted through this first because you can see they used the silhouette, but they also used a Glowforge. And it was really handy. I found this to be a great resource. So I kind of scrolled through, and what I did was, because I knew that I was going to be using a small script, because I was going to be using it on an ornament, I went to this small script fonts list, and I just kind of looked through them, because they offered some great resources here at More Than Thursdays, so you can see what it's going to look like. And then I chose Millennial Solstice for mine. So I just clicked on that, and it took me to a site called dafont.com. Make sure you choose dafont.com. I've had some patrons choose other dafont.net or .org, and it's taken them to some shady websites. So it's dafont.com. And you can also search for a lot of really cool fonts there too. So at this point, what I would do is I would just hit download for the Millennial Solstice. Go ahead and hit allow. But if you want to look for other fonts too, you definitely can here. So you just go to Dafont, and then what we would be looking for here would be more of a script font. So you would just click on script over here and kind of sort through what you think you would like. There's all kinds of like calligraphy. That one looks cute. So, but what you're looking for is where all the letters are connected. That's going to get you the best cut for this kind of project. And you also don't want too many small wisps of print. You want, like this one, I don't know if this would be good for this particular project because it looks very wispy. So you want kind of a thicker text, and you want all the letters to be connected because that'll make it much easier when you go to cut. Okay, so once you've downloaded your file, what you're going to do is you're going to open up your Downloads folder. So for me, that's right here. You're going to see Millennial Solstice. And you're going to double click on one of these. And it's going to look something like this. And you're going to choose Install Font. Okay? It's going to take a minute. Go ahead and let it take its time. Alright, good. And this I'd already installed, so we are just going to resolve automatically. You probably won't have to do that if this is the first time you're installing the font. Okay, so you are set. You can close that when you're done, and you know that your font is installed. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to go to a website called Createzilla. So that is CREAZILLA.com. Alright, Createzilla. And we are just going to type in Snowflake. And then hit enter, and you see you come up with all these really nice snowflakes. So for my design, I'll show you the ones that I chose. I chose this like nice heart-shaped one. I thought it was really pretty. So when I clicked it, you can see here that it has an open source license. It's free for personal and commercial use, so I'm allowed to use it. I clicked on this download here. So on all these websites, you want to be really careful which download button you choose. This is an ad. You do not want to click this download button. You do want to click this one. And what we're going to do is we are going to download the vector graphic. So we're just going to click on that, and we're going to choose download. Then we're going to hit our back button, and I also liked this little fringy edge one here. So I'm going to click on that, and again, you can see here, it's an open source license. It's free for personal and commercial use, so I know I'm allowed to use it, okay? And I'm going to hit download, and I'm going to go to vector graphic, and hit download again. So right now we're just doing our prep work. And the other thing you're going to need to do is, if you don't already have Inkscape installed, that's the program we're working in today. So you're going to go to inkscape.org. And then you're going to hit download, go to current version, and then you're going to download and install whichever version you need. So if you're on a Linux, you're on Windows, you're on Mac, whatever kind of machine you're working on, download that one and install it, okay? So you have got Inkscape installed and open, you have your font installed, and you have your little snowflakes chosen. So at this point, you're going to open up Inkscape, and this is what it's going to look like. So the first thing you're going to choose File, and then you're going to choose Save As. And I'm just going to save this to my desktop for now, and I'm going to save this as Snowflake. Now I'm saving it as snowflake.svg. SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphic. That scalable quality is what makes it much easier to work with on our laser cutter than working in, like, if you work in Photoshop, you're going to be working with a raster graphic. That's going to have that pixelation. You don't want that pixelation for a laser. So that's why we're using vector graphics. That's why we're using Inkscape, because it's designed to work with vector graphics. So you want to make sure you save it as an SVG, okay? And then we're going to just go ahead and hit save. Okay, great. So now at this point, we're going to go to File and Document Properties. Good. Okay, so over here, I don't know about you, but I like to work in inches. So I'm going to choose inches here and here. Now I'm going to change the width and height here. I'm going to change them both to 12. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm working with a 12 by 12 board. If you're working with some other kind of material, you can absolutely change it to fit the material you're working with. The next thing I'm going to do is go to this Snap tab, and I'm going to change all of these. See where it says Snap only when closer than? I'm going to click all those, and then I'm going to drag these sliders all the way down to the bottom. So what snapping will do is your image is close to a grid line or close to a guideline or close to another object. It'll automatically snap to the edge of that object. It'll pull whatever your image is that you're working with so that they fit together, almost like a puzzle piece. And that can be really handy when it comes to lining things up, but I don't find it helpful for drafting. It's helpful for some things, but I don't think necessarily for this project, okay? So once you have that, you're just going to close your document properties. And we're going to open up a couple of menus, okay? So the first menu I'm going to open up here is right here, should be right on the right-hand side. It's the Fill and Stroke menu. If you hover over it, you see it says Edit Objects, Colors, Gradients, and Arrowheads and other fill and stroke properties. And it looks kind of like a paintbrush. So if you click on that, that's going to open up that menu. The other menu that we're going to need is the Alignment menu. It's here. It looks like a little graph. So if you click on that, that's going to open up as well. Those are going to be the two most important menus that we have. Okay, so now it's time for us to make our circle. So we're just going to click over here on the left-hand side on our circle tool, and then we're going to click anywhere and drag to create a circle, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to click on our selection tool that's on the top left. It looks like a little arrow, okay? We're going to change up here this to inches. And now we're going to change our circle to be about 3 inches. So I'm going to click on this and choose 3. And I'm going to do the same thing on width. And now I'm going to hit this lock button to lock this aspect ratio in place, okay? So I'm going to choose about 3 inches by 3 inches is what I'm getting at here. Okay, excellent. Now we're going to go over to our Fill and Stroke menu. I'm going to hit our Stroke tab and I'm going to just turn that off. Actually, I'm going to change this to 3. That way our whole shape is 3 inches. Independent of whether we have a stroke on or not. So, excellent. We have our circle. This is going to be the base of our ornament. So now what we're going to do is duplicate our circle. There are a couple different ways to do that. You can go up here to Edit and Duplicate. And you can't see that anything has been done. If you change here the color though, and then you just move this in, you can see that it has been placed right on top of your original. Another way to do it, if I hit the delete button, delete that. I can also do Command or Control, depending on if you're on a Mac or a Windows PC, and D for duplicate. And you can see again, click another color and move that in. And I've duplicated it right on top. So what I'm going to do here, this second circle, I'm going to actually make it 2.75. And then I'm going to use my alignment tool. So I'm going to drag to select both of these. I'm going to go to my alignment tool, and then I'm going to choose here biggest object. So now I'm aligning my smallest object up to my biggest object. And if you hover over these, you can see this one here is center on vertical axis, and this one is center on horizontal axis. So if I click both of them, that centers this circle right up. Okay, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to click on the inner circle. I'm going to do Control or Command D. I'm going to change that color just to make it easier for me to see. And then I'm going to choose 2.5. And now I'm going to select all of these. Another way you can select everything on the screen is Control or Command A, relative to the biggest object, and I'm going to center on both axes. There we go. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this middle circle here, and I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm also going to click the circle on the very center. And I'm going to go up here to Path, and I'm going to choose Difference. So now you can see I have this nice border here, this nice ring, which I really kind of want. I'm going to use that as part of my design. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add a little circle at the top. We're going to click back on our circle tool and then back on our workspace and click and drag to create a circle. Okay, we're going to click on our selection tool and we're going to decide how big we want this to be. Let's go with about 1/2 inch. I actually feel like we can go a little bigger. Let's try 1 inch. Let's try 0.75. That looks pretty much how I want it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create, you know how ornaments have like a little neck? We're going to create that. So we're going to click on our rectangles and squares, and we're going to make a rectangle, and we're going to use this little where it says RX here. We're going to hit the plus sign till we get some nice rounded corners. You can also grab this here and round your corners that way. So that looks good. Now what we're going to do is I only want the top corners to be rounded, not the bottom. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to create another rectangle right there. And just going to cut off the bottom here. I'm going to hold down Shift and select both my rectangles. Then I'm going to choose Path and Difference. So now it looks kind of like a neck here for the ornament. So now I need to obviously make it shorter. Resize it on the fly however you want. So it looks like in height we're doing about 1/2 inch. And in width we're doing about 1 inch. Now we're going to click on it and we're going to choose Object and lower to bottom. I'm just going to put it behind. And we're going to click on it and we're going to hold down Shift and we're going to click on our ornament here. And we're going to choose, again, relative to biggest object, and we're going to center on vertical axis. Centers it right up. All right, now we're going to do the same thing with our circle. We're going to pull that kind of where we want it. That looks good. Hold down Shift, click on our ornament, center on vertical axis. That lines it right up. So we're going to click that again. We're going to choose Command or Control and D to duplicate. We're going to change the color so we can see it better. And we are going to lock our aspect ratio, and we're going to take this down to about, let's try 0.3. Is that how big we want it to be? Probably. We're going to center this up with our hole here. We're going to click on our hole. We're going to hold down Shift. We're going to click on the larger circle. We're going to center it to the biggest object. And I think that's going to look pretty darn good. I'm going to click and drag to select all these objects. And I'm just going to use my arrow key and nudge them down. I think that's going to look pretty good. Okay, so now what we do is we click on the circle, not the hole in the center, but the circle outside of it. Hold down Shift and click on the little neck there. We're going to do Path Union. Now we're going to keep that selected. Hold down Shift, choose your ornament. Not the ring in there, the ornament outside. And we're going to choose Path Union. We're going to click on our little hole there, and we are going to hold down Shift, and we're going to choose our ornament. We're going to choose Path and Difference. So now you can see what we've done is by adding Union, we have made the entire shape here of our ornament one path. And by using Difference, we've cut out a hole for our string. Okay? All right, so now this is a good point to stop and save. So File and Save, or Control or Command and S. Make sure you save often and save early. Okay, so now that we have our outline done, what we're going to do is we're going to go to File and Import because we're going to import our snowflakes. So File, Import, go ahead to Downloads, choose your first snowflake, choose Include SVG, and hit OK. Okay, so now we're going to click on our snowflake, and we're going to resize it down to about 1 inch. And then we're going to drag it back into our workspace. And now hit File, Save. We are going to do the same thing with the other snowflake. File, Import, Snowflake 2, Open, Include SVG Image. Okay. Change it to about 1 inch. And then when you click over it, you see how you have that little crosshair there? That means that you can click and move the file. So now you can resize and duplicate these however you want, okay? So what I did to get that top image there is I actually clicked on it, hit Command D, moved it over. If I click again, you see my arrows change to these rounded arrows. That means I can rotate. So I can rotate so I have it straight up and down. And I'm also going to resize it. I'm going to pull on this corner arrow till it looks a lot bigger. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to match these hearts up with this ring. Okay, does that make sense? So now, once I think I have it looking pretty much how I want it to, with those hearts matched up with that ring, I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to click on my ornament, and then I'm going to align here on the vertical axis, so it's nice and centered. Yeah, I think that looks great. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a rectangle, and I'm going to cut it off right about here. See where that line there is? So I'm clicking that, hold down Shift, click on my snowflake, choose Path and Difference. So now I'm just going to have this top. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to be able to connect this part of my snowflake to this ring, to this outer edge of my ornament, so it's all one piece. It's going to be one layer of our ornament. So to do that, I'm actually going to duplicate my ornament and my ring. So I'm going to click on my ring, Command D, and just change the color so I can see it. And same thing with the ornament, Command D, just change the color to something. Okay, so now I'm going to lower, Object, lower. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bucket tool, I'm going to fill in this part here. Just some color, doesn't matter what. Now I'm going to choose, I'm going to select this inner circle, hold down Shift, select this ornament, and I'm going to choose Path, Difference. So now I have a hole cut out in there. So if I pull this away, you can see that's the kind of shape I want, right? So I'm going to click this, and we're going to go Path, or I'm going to go Object and lower to bottom. And now I'm just going to pull away this old shape. I think I'm going to keep this ring. I'm just going to keep this ring, just one of the rings. If I click on my ornament and I go to Stroke, I turn on Stroke, I turn off Fill, I hit Stroke Style, I change it to 1 point, you can see the outline of our ornament is really starting to show up. So if I click on this inner circle here, I'm actually going to turn off Stroke, turn on Fill. Alright, so we are going to add some more snowflakes a little later, but right now we're also going to add our text. So I'm going to choose Text, I'm going to write my name here, and I'm going to go up here and I'm going to choose the font that I already downloaded and installed. If you do not see your font, close Inkscape, save first, then close Inkscape. Then make sure you install your font and reopen Inkscape. Fonts are installed on the computer, not on the program. So what you need to do is make sure your font is installed first. That way when your program opens, it reads it as a font that already exists on the computer. If you're enjoying this video and you want more like it, don't forget to like and subscribe, or even leave a comment. I try to answer all comments and questions in a timely manner. You can also give us a shout out on Facebook. It helps us spread the word about all the cool resources and services that the library has to offer. Alright, and I want my C to have a nice little tail, so I'm going to just put an A there first, so I can use that tail later. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click to select everything there, and I'm going to ramp up my font here. Let's try 60, see what that looks like. Maybe a little too big, let's try 50. If I click on my selection tool and I move it, what I want, yeah, see how I have a little tail here connecting my C and my N. So everything is being nice and connected to this ring. That is what I want. Okay, so when that looks the way I want it to, I'm actually going to pull it away, and then I'm going to hit Command D to duplicate. I'm going to drag that new one off of here. I'm going to do Path, Object Path. So I'm making a path out of it. And then I'm going to do something a little surprising. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to fill this in. And over here I'm going to turn off stroke. I'm going to turn on fill. Pull that away. Going to do path, union. So now this is all a path. I'm going to take a rectangle. And I'm going to just take away that A there. Same way we did before. Going to hit Shift, select both path and difference. There you go. So now I'm going to zoom back out. I'm going to center this up. Hold down Shift, select my ornament, go to Align, choose Biggest Object. We can center it up. We can even center it up to this little ring if we want to. Okay, so once you have this, we're going to zoom back in. And what I want to do is I want to take this little eye here, and I want to make a little snowflake instead. I think it'll be super cute. So let's Command D, take our snowflake and make it smaller. Zoom in. Alright, I think that's going to look really cute. Let's take our rectangle tool. We're going to make a thin line here. And we're actually going to turn this down. We don't want any rounded edges. We're going to make this really small. Remember, if we click again, we can adjust the angle. There we go. Alright. Now we are going to move this slightly out of the way. Now we're going to get rid of this actual dot here. We're going to hold down Shift, select both that rectangle and our letters, path, and difference. Now we're going to move this down here so it's touching the bottom of the heart. Now we're going to select this, hold down Shift, select the little stem, hold down Shift, select that, path, and union. So now if we zoom out, isn't that cute? We've given a nice tiny little snowflake for our dot. Okay, so once you have your text looking the way you want it, we can go ahead and get rid of this ring now. So we can just pull that off and delete that, okay? All you want to do is make sure that this is touching inside the ring of our ornament. And we're actually going to turn this. We're going to fill it, turn off our stroke. So you can see this is all going to be one piece. We're going to do the same thing here. So if we click this one, hold down Shift, click this one, hold down Shift, click this one, hold down Shift, do path union. You can already kind of see what we're getting at, yeah? This is going to be one piece here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to resize and add our snowflakes so that they're touching in like strategic locations. We want them touching our text and this outer ring here. So that looks good. And then we're going to do maybe one over here. So now your goal is just to relocate these, duplicate them, resize them until you get something that looks like what you want. Okay, so once you make sure that all of your snowflakes are touching the edge and as many as possible are touching your letters, you're going to select them all. Now what we're going to do is Control or Command A and path and union. Okay, so now we have the top layer. Oh, I didn't mean to actually include this in it. That's okay. We can just get rid of that really easily by creating a rectangle there. By creating a rectangle over top of it, hold down Shift, select everything, do path and difference. Voila. So now we just need our outer edge. So to do that, we're going to make a rectangle. We're going to go to Fill and Stroke. We're going to stroke it, turn off Fill, take our paint bucket, make that fill, Turn off stroke. We're going to fill this. Delete this. Now we're going to turn on stroke and turn off fill. So what we've done is we've made an outline. We can snap it right there so it fits perfectly. And if we're not sure, what we can do is go to Align and Distribute. We're going to align it to our biggest object. Just center that right up. And now we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to take our fill bucket. We're going to fill in that. We already have stroke on, so it should just do a nice little stroke there. So now, what we have here, we have two shapes that go together. So before we go into the Glowforge to cut our design, we need to make some decisions about the materials that we want to use and how we want to prepare or finish them. You have some options. If you're using acrylic paint, then you can paint your boards ahead of time and save some work later. If you're using another kind of paint or stain and you aren't sure that it's safe for the Glowforge, then it's better to wait and paint the raw wood later on, after cutting. You can also decide whether or not you want to use masking tape to cover the wood and prevent scorch marks. Some people like the scorched rustic look, so they don't cover their materials with masking tape. Some people prefer a smoother finish. If you choose to paint your board ahead of time, then depending on the paint or how dry it is, there's a chance that some of your paint may be peeled away by the tape, so just be aware of that. Proof grade materials, those are the ones that come straight from Glowforge, they come pre-covered with tape on both sides. So go ahead and decide ahead of time if you want to keep the tape or remove it. If you decide to use masking tape, be aware that you'll have to peel it away after cutting. You'll want to avoid any very tiny or delicate pieces or details in your design. The last thing you want is to accidentally break off a snowflake while peeling away the masking tape. Whatever you decide to do, painting, staining, taping, etc., make those decisions now, before you go to the Glowforge and cut. Make sure that your paint is completely dry and that there aren't any air bubbles in your masking tape before you cut. Okay, so now it's time to actually go into the Glowforge app. If you have your own account, you just log in at app.glowforge.com. If you are at the tech center, we will actually log you in to our account, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is just log into the tech center account. Okay, and it looks something like this. Obviously, you will have different projects available here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Create and then Upload from File. Then I'm going to find my file. You can see I put it here on the desktop. And then I'm going to click Upload. Alright, so my Glowforge is damaged. My camera is damaged. Yours will probably not look quite this blurry. If you're using proof grade material like I am this time, what you're going to do is you're going to hit this Unknown button here. And then you're going to choose, in this case, I'm using medium basswood hardwood, so I'm going to choose the material I'm using. I'm going to hit Control A to select everything on the screen. I can zoom out a little so you can see, and then I'm just going to move it back in. Okay, so in my case, I happen to know that my camera is malfunctioning, so I'm going to offset that by moving this in about an inch and moving it up also about an inch. You will probably not have to do that. I have to do that because my Glowforge is broken. I'm actually going to use as much as I possibly can. Okay, so now it's time for you to choose your setting. I'm going to cut both of these because this is a layered ornament. So here, I'm going to click this, choose Cut and Proof Grade Cut. And the same for here, Cut and Proof Grade Cut. Next thing you want to do is, if your camera isn't broken, you're going to want to set your focus. So I'm going to click on this More button here. I'm going to choose Set Focus. I'm going to click in the center of my design. And you're going to see the camera is going to focus. You can see what it's doing right here. Okay, good. And once that is done, it says ready. I'm going to hit print. It's going to calculate the movements. And now it's time for me to go hit the print button on my machine. Okay, so now it's time to put in my next board, and for this one I just want to show you what it's like to use material that is not proof grade. So I'm using just some craft wood that I got at the store. It's about 1/8 of an inch, but it's not perfect, it's a little warped. I'm going to just put down some masking tape on one side, so I'm just going to cover it and then trim it with the scissors. And then I'm going to squeegee it down. You can use any kind of credit card, scrap wood, just anything flat. What you're going to do is get out as many air bubbles and bumps as you can. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is take a pair of digital calipers, because I know there's some warping in the wood. I'm going to go from the highest point, or what I think is the highest point, and measure that. And I don't know if you can see that or not, but the measurement I'm coming to is 0.197, and that's in inches. Okay, and now I've changed out my board because I'm going to do a non-proof grade material here as well. So I'm going to select everything and scoot it toward the edges here. So I want to use as much material as I can, or save as much material rather, use as little material as I can. I've already added masking tape just to one side, and as you can see, I've also, or as you saw, I've also measured using calipers. And because there was some warp in the wood, I measured at what I thought was the highest point in the wood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose over here, use uncertified material. My measurement was 0.19 something. So I'm going to be, I'm going to lie a little bit and I'm going to say it's 0.2. And I'm going to hit submit. Okay, and now for my settings, I can't actually choose a proof grade cut. See that? So I'm actually going to choose some settings I already saved. To speed of 160, power of 100, and 1 pass. We can compare that to the settings we just used. So if we go to medium basswood hardwood, and we go back here to proof grade cut, we can see that that was a speed of 220 at full power. So this is actually going to be a little bit lighter. So again, going to go back, use uncertified 0.2, and our settings here 160 and 100, and we're going to see if that gets through. Now unfortunately you can't always tell if that's going to work. So what we're going to do for this one here is we are actually going to ignore this big one, and we're just going to do the simple cut here on the settings that I'd used for 1/8 before. Now I'd saved these before. So again, speed 160, power 100, 1 pass, that's what we're going to try. And we're going to hit set focus, set our focus on our design. Okay, good. Now we're going to hit print. Okay, and now that that's ready, we are going to go and we're going to test the cut. If it cuts all the way through our larger ornament piece, then we're going to go ahead and do the more precise piece next. Okay, and since that did give us a nice clean cut, that cut all the way through, although you can see that there's some offset here, yours won't have that necessarily, mine does because my camera is broken. Because I feel like those settings are going to work well, I'm going to use them on my more precise piece. So to do that, I'm just going to nudge a tiny bit with my arrow keys, just to try to make sure I'm not going to accidentally cut off my design here. Again, with my camera broken, it's kind of hard to tell. What I'm going to do now, after moving my more complicated piece, I'm actually going to move over here. I'm going to change this ignore to cut. I'm going to do 1/8 cut because I know I liked those settings. Again, those are settings I chose, 160 and 100, 1 pass, that I had saved using this little save button previously. And then this one I'm going to hit ignore on because I already cut it. Alright, now once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and hit my print button. And it's going to calculate the precision movements and then print just like always. So at this point, now I'm going to go and hit the button. Okay, so the next part is kind of tedious. This is the part where you have to peel away all of the masking tape. Now, I find that it works best if you work on a flat surface, that you take your time, and that you use some tweezers to peel away all the masking tape. You might, if you have some small details, still accidentally tear away some of those small details. Go ahead and put those aside, like I've done with that snowflake there, and save them, because you can glue them back on later. Alright, and once you have all the masking tape off, the next step is to go ahead and paint it. What I've done here is I've painted both sides of the layered, or the top layer, white, and then I've painted what's going to be the back side of the back layer white, and I also painted around the edges. I'll have to go back and do some touch-up later, but I made sure to, in this first layer, paint as much of the white as I possibly could. Okay, and then once that dried, I went ahead and I painted the back side of the top layer white. And then next I poured out some brown paint and I painted what's going to be the top layer, the layer that shows through of the bottom layer. I painted that a nice dark, deep brown. Once everything was painted, I went ahead and I added a thin layer of Mod Podge around the outer edge, and then I stuck it in place with some binder clips. And the final step was to remove the binder clips and touch up the paint, so any areas that maybe had gotten the wrong color on them or that the Mod Podge was showing through, you just touch that up with another small layer of paint, and then you let that dry. And now all that's left to do is to add some string or twine and place it on your Christmas tree. You can see it right here on my family's Christmas tree. This is what it looks like, live and in action. If you live in the Hamilton or Greater Cincinnati area and you'd like to come in and create an ornament or another Glowforge project of your own, please give us a call at 513-785-2727 or email us at techcenter@lanepl.org. You can set up a one-on-one appointment to learn hands-on with one of our friendly and knowledgeable staff members, or if you're already familiar with the Glowforge, you can sign up for time with the machine. Bring your own material or use ours. Scrap wood, masking tape, paint, and more is all free to use in our makerspace. Also, check out our website at lanepl.org and hit the Events tab to learn more about upcoming tech classes.